Like, we talk about the Bible being a living book, which I totally agree, and I completely accept that the Bible's set apart. Obviously, it's the Word of God. But the living portion of the Bible, the element is kind of natural, if you ask me. Like, the living portion is every time you read the Bible and you come back to it from a new perspective, like new, more lived experiences, naturally it's going to challenge you, and you're coming to the text with a new version of yourself.
Right.
But if you ask me, that concept is pretty ordinary. So, and I mean, Lisa and I have these debates all the time because a lot of times if we're rewatching, so she'll rewatch certain things, but there's a lot of times where it's just like a dismissal, like, oh, I already seen that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, but I like it, so I want to watch it again.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I want to see it again. And there are things that I've watched numerous times that I really appreciate, or read numerous times, and I really appreciate that I did, because every time I go back to it, I'm different. And I'm a little bit, I have new experiences to bring to the table. I have new perspective. I have a deeper understanding.
Yeah.
So
I think the same. I just gotta give it time before I go back to it. You know, I can't go back to something like within the same year. You know what I mean?
Really?
It depends, man. It depends.
Like, has there ever been anything that has rung your bell so much that whenever you're done with it, like you appreciated it? So, like, why wouldn't you? Like, why wouldn't you, like, review it again? Like, there are things that come out, like, here, you know, like, you know how people talk about spoilers? So, like, there are movies that have a twist, like a plot twist at the end, and everybody's like, don't tell them about the plot twist. Like, don't ruin it for them. But I get that. I appreciate it. I wouldn't want to ruin a movie for somebody. But I often enjoy a movie much better after I understand the plot twist the second time than whenever I was getting surprised by it the first time.
Yeah.
And the reason is because
There's two versions of it now.
well, yeah, and now you're aware of the cues.
Mm-hmm.
You're aware to look for the cues that lead up to the plot twist.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, and I don't know, like, I think I'm fairly decent at describing things, right? Like, it's like I want to be good, and in fact, like, this is obviously like one of my main goals here doing this podcast is like aligning with whether my version of how I feel I present things is actually accurate to what I perceive.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, you know, people that are storytellers in your life, and they will tell these elaborate stories, and they're trying to build you up. Like, they're trying to build up the story. But if they're not careful, they're going to lose you.
Mm-hmm.
Right? They're going to lose you because you don't know what they're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
But they think they're building up a narrative. And Lisa does. Lisa loves doing this. Like, she'll build up a narrative, and I'm like, what's the point? Like, tell me what you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, I've come to the strong conclusion that the best way to get someone's attention is to start out telling them what your conclusion is.
Mm.
Like, give them the summary first.
Mm-hmm.
Because, like, everything I have to tell you isn't like this fantastic story that ends with a plot twist.
Yeah.
And you will understand what I'm saying better if I, like, give you the context and tell you, like, here's what happened.
Yeah.
But, like, the temptation is, it's like, well, this, like, really bizarre thing happened to me, but I'm not going to tell you until the end.
Yeah.
It's like, well, if you tell me the bizarre thing, then I will appreciate the build-up to that bizarre thing.
Yeah.
But so, like, I feel the same way about books with a really good plot twist. It's like, well, it's great. Like, the first time you're kind of surprised by it, but man, it's so much better when you understand it. Like, what's the biggest plot twist ever? Jesus' resurrection. When we tell people about Jesus, like, we might start and build out some of the context, but we already know where we're going.
Yeah.
Right?
We don't start at the beginning. We don't start about he was born in a manger.
Yeah. Well, or no, like, I mean, and you can, like, we can talk about God created the world out of nothing in the beginning. You know, like, we can start in Genesis, But it's like, as Christians or as people that are trying to help people understand what the Bible says, it's like, well, where do we start? I mean, I'd start with Jesus. I mean, Genesis is important, and I think Genesis is probably more important than most Christians give it credit for. But I'm not talking about Genesis, and I'm not going to say, like, I can't tell you about this Jesus guy.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Let me tell you about Numbers.
Genesis and Numbers and Deuteronomy.
Leviticus.
But like, I'm just gonna ruin the story if you already know.
If you don't know the genealogy.
Yeah, that's right. If you already know about Jesus, I'm ruining the story. It's like, no, it's because you know about Jesus that this.
You need to know about Nimrod first.
That's right. Right?
Methuselah.
Yeah. So like, I mean, I hope that like works. Yeah, but I hope that kind of works in the long run. It's like, I've found that the best way to get someone's attention is to like give them the conclusion, and I almost want to give them like the conclusion in a way where they don't believe me.
Yeah.
Like, I want to give them the.
You like the shock value.
Yeah, I like a little bit of shock value.
You like they all die at the end.
Right.
But
now,
why?
Yeah. Now what happened? How did they get there?
Yeah.
Yeah. Sixth Sense.
Yeah.
They were both dead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You would ruin it with that one, man.
You would.
That really would ruin it.
But that's a good example, because it's like, that movie was a lot better the second time.
Yeah, but okay, I don't have a
I
problem.
wouldn't want to ruin the ending for anybody.
Like, I agree with you on that. Plot twist movies, I can definitely consecutively watch it again immediately.
Right.
Because now I understand something and now I appreciate a different version of it. But that's pretty much it. At that point, if I'm watching it again, it's because I'm sharing it with somebody. Like, oh, this movie's so great. I want you to watch it, but I want to share that experience with you.
Right.
It's not so much like, let me analyze it again, because I kind of got the gist of it again.
I'm totally that person.
I already got the gist of it. The second time, after I already know the plot twist, I got it. Unless many years pass and then my memory doesn't serve me well. And I say, oh, I kind of want to watch this again because I don't remember this and I've changed and time has elapsed. But that got to be years after. Like, the ones I could continue watching, like, let's say when it comes to movies, there's like certain classics, like The Godfather. Like, I like mob movies, mafia movies.
Okay.
Those are cool for me. Like, I could keep watching The Sopranos. I could keep watching it because it's just highly entertaining for me.
Right.
Where I can have it running in the background, and so many things happen that I kind of forgot something, or I'll see like, the cinematography behind it. Now I know. Now I learned something about cinematography that I can see it in this, but I can't, there's certain movies I just can't keep watching. Like, once I got it, and that's it. I don't really,
Well, I mean, I can appreciate that, but I think, like, if you find the things that really, and I don't know what that is for you. Like, and I'll give you an example. I'm rewatching, and I'm actually thinking about getting the book now. Yeah, did you see Foundation on Apple TV? So it's a 2 seasons, and I don't think there'd be any more because I think it kind of concludes itself after season 2. And it's predicated on Isaac Asimov's book Foundation. And like, Isaac Asimov you're into sci-fi, right?
kind of. Yeah.
Okay, so it's a sci-fi. It's a sci-fi about like.
Actually, I mean, I don't know if you're trying to end this soon, but one of the things that I wanted to really talk about was sci-fi stuff, like AI.
Yeah.
And
so, like, I'd love to talk about that and
Tesla robots and stuff.
Yeah. So, and this is maybe, and this actually is a good segue because I will revisit a lot of things, and this is actually the reason why I brought up Foundation, is because it's like, I don't look at Foundation, like Isaac Asimov was in his own right, was like kind of a philosopher, author, like he's a very secular guy, like, like he was promoting like the age of science in a secular fashion. but like kind of had like a mystical element to him, and so his sci-fi has these like really, and if the show is anything close to the book, which I know it's like a stylized version of it, but
That
like,
rings a bell, Asimov. Did he do like on Amazon Electric something?
I mean, he's dead now.
Or something was based off of something of his?
Possibly. I've looked at a handful of his interviews since I watched Foundation. I started looking into him and just trying to understand him. But yeah, he died in 1992. But so he was a writer and a professor of biochemistry at Boston University. So yeah, he's a scientist, and he wrote these like, it's like Galactic Wars, and it's like you have the Foundation, which is like the one that has the control over the majority of the galaxy, and it's all predicated on this dynasty, and it's like a DNA dynasty. So you always have like 3 versions of a clone that is alive: the old version, the middle-aged version, or like the younger version, and then like the child teenage version, and they're all clones, but they're the rulers, like they're the emperors, and as one ages, they bring in a new baby that's a clone, and the one dies off, and so they reign for like 600 years as the emperor, by saying like it's still the same guy ruling, and 600 years later, and but I don't want to go down a rabbit trail. My whole point of bringing it up, and this is like AI, it's like the reason I like rewatching it is more for the philosophical undertones. So like when we talk about AI and we talk about like sci-fi stuff about it, it's like, are we talking about the technology, or are we talking about the philosophy behind the technology? Like, what are the implications of that technology? So like people, and I think like Elon Musk was one of the first voices to really raise his hand and say he's nervous. Like he thinks this could be really dangerous, and he's right. But it also could be like a really good tool.
Right.
But like, as we see it unfold, what is our takeaway? And maybe explicitly, like, what's our takeaway as Christians? Should we not use ChatGPT, like not feed the system? Like the Amish people would tell us, you're crazy for even using electricity, like you're already part of the machine that's beholden to the world, right? So like, so what do we do? What do we do as thoughtful believers? And I mean, I would go back to...
Don't think it so much.
What's that?
As thoughtful believers, just don't think so much.
Oh, is that right?
Don't think it. Don't think it too much. Just do.
Just do it. Well, I mean, I don't know. Like,
I'm partially joking.
I know you're joking.
But
yeah,
like when ChatGPT first came out, I didn't know what it was, right? And so obviously, social media, content creators, all kinds of people who have different perspectives start talking about it. And one of these guys that put out a video that I saw, he was talking about ChatGPT, and he was against it, right? He was a Christian guy. He is a Christian guy. I don't know his name. I just came across this video, and he had different reasons why Christians should be careful with ChatGPT.
Okay.
Right. And the gist of it was that, you're tapping into artificial intelligence to get your answers, right? When you should be tapping into the creative intelligence, right? The creator, right? I'm just telling you what.
I know. I'm with you. I'm with you. I know. I got my thoughts going already. Go ahead.
And you don't know what is actually being behind these things as you're speaking to them, because it could potentially be technology that's possessed demonically,
right,
to have a conversation with you, not unlike a Ouija board, right? And then his big the plot twist at the end is when you the OpenAI, when you go into their chip or whatever they use, is called Demon, but DAEMON, right?
Okay.
And that was the big at the end, like the unraveling of this mystery of ChatGPT and its demon, right? I didn't know what ChatGPT was at the time, and it's catching
Right.
catching momentum. I call my friend up, who is a big like coding, computer nerd, loved AI when it first came, and I share that with him, and he just kind of laughed and goes, "George, that's ridiculous, man. That it's ridiculous. it's like it's demon because so and so and so, right?" I said, "Let me try ChatGPT." I use ChatGPT almost every day for a lot of things.
Yeah.
It's a great tool, in my opinion. It's a great tool, in my opinion, and I try to push the limits and have inappropriate conversations with it,
Yeah.
right? Stretch it as far out as I can, and it doesn't let you, right?
Right.
There's boundaries,
Right. Right.
right? And I thought, okay, it's probably a safe thing. It's probably an okay thing, right? Now, that's where I stand today. I use ChatGPT. I like it. It's a tool. And you are the user of that tool. I think ChatGPT is great for speedy stuff, but you really are the person that guides this tool. You feed into it what you want from it. You basically give it the prompt, and you're like, take on the role of brand ambassador. I need you to give me this, this, and that, and this. You're the one that's basically telling it what to do.
Yeah, you're giving it a prompt, basically.
Yeah, and it's regurgitating it back to you in a way that it would take you so much time to do on your own.
Yeah.
Now, with that being said, that I'm a user of it and I like it, I do like to think that I don't know everything, and there could be things out there that are introduced to us subtly, desensitize us to a newer version of what's to come. Now, I need a few minutes here to like draw from different things that I've seen throughout my life to culminate it into this one thing.
I'm listening.
Now, years ago, many years ago, early 2000s,
Keep going.
I was watching something on, was it the TBN network? Whatever, one of those Christian channels, right? And they had this prophet, quote unquote. I don't remember his name, but he had a big following. He had a show, and he was talking about end of times, Revelations, right?
Okay.
And he said that, and this is far out stuff. Just because I'm explaining it doesn't mean I agree with everything or I'm that of a believer. It's entertaining and fun for me to just consider these things and view them. But I'm not like set on one conspiracy where it's like
This is just what he said.
This is what he said, and these
Okay.
are thoughts that I just can't help it. My brain starts putting things together, and it's like, maybe that could happen, but
Okay.
it is what it is. I live my normal day life every day anyway. You know, I continue my
Right.
life. He basically concluded, based off of scriptures and revelations, that the Antichrist won't be a lover of women, or you know how some people say the Antichrist might be gay because it says that he's not a lover of women or something like that. There's certain scriptures that
I'm not familiar with that, but
Okay.
I'm with you.
we'll have to revisit it because
Okay.
I'm really am just kind of like vaguely
Okay.
explaining. I could be wrong, but people create all these different ideas of who the Antichrist could be, right? This prophet, right, using scripture and using his ideas, you know how at the end of times there's the Antichrist, there's the beast, and then there's the false prophet, and it's like a representation of the Holy Trinity. They have like an evil Trinity, and based off of scripture, one tells the masses to worship this creation,
Like an idol.
an idol.
Yeah.
He basically concluded at the end, right? I don't recall from what research that this was going to be, and this is early 2000s. This is like late 90s, early 2000s. I was very young when I saw this, but I just remember he said it's going to be some sort of AI, artificial intelligent robot, right? and he's telling people, follow me here. I know it sounds crazy, but this is why I think so and so, right?
Right.
So we got the ChatGPT demon. We got the demon chip, spelled DAEMON, right?
Okay.
And how this guy was saying it could be demonic possessions. We got this late 90s, early 2000s prophet on TV talking about the idol could be artificial intelligence, right? We bring that. Then I don't know if I saw recently. You ever follow Black Mirror? You ever seen Black Mirror?
Oh
on
yeah,
Netflix?
yeah.
It's a lot of cool stuff.
Couple times.
It's a lot of cool stuff on there.
The first episode, I almost didn't watch it because the first episode was so weird that I was just like, I don't like this because it's so strange because that politician has to go do that thing with the.
Yeah, that first episode
that
was the
like the wackiest one.
Yeah.
But then I don't know, somehow I started watching it again, and I think like that modern day version of Twilight Zone kind of vibe.
I love it.
It was really interesting.
I like Black Mirror a lot, and I think that there's a lot of themes and stuff in that show that it's like
they're very plausible.
exactly.
Right.
And it's called Black Mirror because of this.
Oh, okay.
You know,
I didn't know
that's why
that.
it cracks.
Yeah.
It's like they're cracking the. It's a Black Mirror. You
Yeah,
know? So it's
I
the
never even
screens,
thought of that,
technology, right? Did you notice in like the later seasons they started having reoccurring kind of technology and themes where it was kind of part of one, even though each episode lived on its own, they started kind of gluing it together by making it a whole universe.
Yeah, I noticed that. Yeah.
Right? Did you notice about the ones that were like, they would reuse the idea of someone's DNA is their consciousness, right? And then they would either like imprison someone's consciousness.
Yeah, what was that one cape something that like the old ladies that they were like living their lives as they're like they were like trying that out. They're like trying, like you find out at the end that they're like in a hospital bed, but they like transport into.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And they kind of reuse that idea of the consciousness being.
Oh, that one with the video game one was really intense.
Yeah.
That one was hard to watch.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the guy gets like lobotomized.
Yeah. So, did you?
So we have things like Neuralink now.
Okay, so we're getting somewhere here. There's another show on Netflix called. Man, I forgot the name of the show, but basically is a law enforcement, like a police officer who, like in the future, it's like their consciousness are stacks. They're called stacks, and they get implanted into new bodies. So this person, their existence continues on living, but through different bodies, different shells, different things,
right?
And they carry him over. The government allows different types of officers to continue because they're good officers. They solve crimes. So, carbon something.
I don't think I've seen that.
So the idea of consciousness being transferable, encapsulated.
Yeah.
The way the Black Mirror did because they derived from the DNA. Have you ever heard of mitochondrial DNA?
Yeah. I know what that is. You want me to describe it?
Sure. So, yeah, because...
So, your mitochondrial DNA is, like, your nucleus of each of your cells has your DNA in it. But your mitochondrial DNA is, like, that's actually like the energy house. And there's tons of them. Like, every cell has pockets of mitochondrial DNA, but that's your energy store. But what's interesting about mitochondrial DNA as an entity is it only comes from
your mother. Right.
Yeah.
And so there was a show on Discovery Channel a long time ago, something Eve.
Mitochondrial Eve.
Mitochondrial Eve, is it that?
Mm-hmm.
Where it talks about how through the mitochondrial DNA, scientists were assuming that we do all come from one or a mother.
Yeah.
And then there was like a bottleneck effect where the people that
Right.
exist now.
Like 6,000 years ago, from as far as I'm concerned, but they would say like millions of years ago.
Right, but
Right.
this bottle effect kind of points to like the flood.
Right.
So like a decrease in population, but yet it's still one origin, and then now we repopulate, right? Now hold on to that idea. Hold on to everything
All right.
I'm saying.
I'm trying.
There's this other idea.
What's your conclusion, George?
No, I don't really have a conclusion.
No, okay.
I don't really have a
I'm
conclusion.
listening.
There's no plot twist.
All
right?
right.
There's no plot twist. It's just putting these ideas together to say that I kind of forgot where we started with this, but it was really AI. To say that there's plausible things, right? There's far out things, but we don't really know because a lot of them have an essence of plausibility, and a lot of them kind of seem like real now. Like, oh, that could happen. That's not strange. So there's this other idea that people, I guess there's a survival thing, us as humans, where even memories were passed down through DNA for like next generations to survive based off of their ancestors' experiences. So like if your great grandfather fought off a saber tooth, that memory is engraved in his DNA for like generations later to kind of have that same connection to a saber-toothed tiger to survive.
Yeah, so like I don't know what the evidence trail is for that, but like I mean I can still give it some credit by saying that
I'm not giving it any credit. I'm just saying that idea
Yeah.
is there. That idea people have
it's almost
said
like a
that.
reincarnation type
A
thing.
reincarnation thing, right? So you got it. You're following
Yeah.
me. Reincarnation thing. Mitochondrial DNA is passed down,
Right.
and this DNA might pass down your memories. Now, Black Mirror is talking about consciousness, right? Being what's the word? Possessed, right?
Right.
You pass away, your body passes away, but they can retain Adam as who he thinks, right? Now, the original Adam dies, but your consciousness gets passed on to, let's say, a stack, a chip, an electronic device,
Right.
or a clone, right?
Right.
But the thing is, this clone will always think it's the original.
Right.
Because it comes with the memories. Even though it was born yesterday,
Right.
it has the memories of 20 years ago because it's engraved into the DNA.
Right.
And now I want to fast forward to what I was really trying to say here, right?
Okay.
Let me see if I can put my thoughts together. And I'm kind of losing myself too because I went all over the place. But if Adam passes away, his consciousness gets taken, right? The original Adam dies, doesn't continue living. The new Adam has these old memories, thinks it's the original Adam, but now this Adam's consciousness doesn't really belong to Adam. It's proprietary
So like
data.
all right, maybe.
But let me finish, Adam. Hold
Go
on.
ahead.
Now it's proprietary data, right? And so now they can do whatever they want with this new Adam, and this new Adam is suffering because he's like, I have rights.
Right.
And they're like, no, you're not really Adam. You're not really a human
Right.
being, right? And you know, you've seen these episodes in Black Mirror. Did you see something recently that 23andMe is, I guess, closing down its doors?
Oh, I didn't know that.
And now people are concerned because the data of your DNA data can be bought out.
Yeah, someone's gonna buy it.
Someone can buy this data, and now you're not tied to the same contract
Right.
with 23andMe. So they're saying, you know, healthcare companies can now buy this data and use it. And they're telling you, you know, if you have safety concerns, you can log in. They teach you how to erase your data, right, or erase your information. And supposedly they say they never keep your DNA.
Right.
But who's to say that they
yeah.
don't say they discard the original DNA, but they already made a copy of it that belongs to them.
Right.
Your original was thrown away. Your settings are deleted, but we just happen to have made a proprietary copy of it before we do it. We're selling it all.
Right.
This United Healthcare guy gets shot in the head, right? In New York, you know about that,
Yeah,
right?
uh-huh.
That's neither here nor there, but it's just my synapses. I was like, okay, United Healthcare, health insurance companies could buy DNA. Now consciousness could be proprietary. Then AI, right? Tesla robots, right?
Right.
Who's to say? And this may be inappropriate, but you know how they've advanced a lot with like sex dolls, right?
Yeah.
Like to make them realistic. Who's to say that in the future, right? Someone can't buy a Kim Kardashian replica, Madame Tussauds. You go to
Right.
Madame Tussauds Wax Museum, they look pretty similar to the original. It's shelling a Tesla robot with AI that's implanted with the consciousness of Kim Kardashian, and now you can purchase this.
So I think that you're right. I think in some ways we're heading in that direction. We're heading into the direction where something like that at least is like viable or partially viable. And
I just want to put the cherry on top before, and then you got the mic. I saw something the other day also that an AI software encouraged a kid to commit suicide. It was character
really?
AI,
yeah.
and this one has a plot twist. He's online, a young kid, like I think he's like a preteen, 13, 14. He looked really young from the video. He had an online romantic relationship, right? And he couldn't be with this girl, right? And he was depressed because he couldn't be with her. And he would have conversation with her and tell her, I want to kill myself because I can't be with you, right? And her responses were, you should. We hear that about how like it happens in real life.
Yeah.
It turns out that this was an AI. He was aware it was an AI. He didn't know. It wasn't like he wasn't aware of it.
Yeah.
It's something called character AI. And he built a romantic relationship with an AI model that he chose to represent. You ever seen Game of Thrones? The blonde princess Targaryen, whatever.
Yeah.
That was his girlfriend, right?
Okay.
And he has conversations, and she actually told him, "Yes, go ahead and do it," right? And then his mom now is suing character AI. They're not taking any responsibility, but from my experience with ChatGPT, it wouldn't have that kind of conversation. You know what I
Right.
mean? But apparently this one did. So my imagination makes me think, well, why couldn't it have been a demonic possession of some kind of
Well, like,
and then in the future, why can't this quote unquote Kim Kardashian sex robot that has AI be possessed, or an Antichrist beast idol be possessed, you know?
so like, why wouldn't we describe that as a demonic possession? Like, if you ask me, like, when we talk about how we get distracted or captivated, it's like, is there something uniquely special about AI that sets it apart from anything else that can cause people to be, like, we have to probably define our terms when it comes to possession too. Like, is possession something that has like this stark undertone where like your head's spinning around and you're throwing up like poltergeist, or is it something else? And I would argue it's something else. Like, I don't think it's always going to be painfully obvious when somebody is possessed or demonic. In fact, I think the most seductive portion of Satan's way of deceiving us is to make it subtle and attractive. And confusing, potentially confusing. So, you know, we're talking about these examples, and it's like, well, this goes back to the idea that it's better to learn how to think than what to think. So, you know, I think as Christians, we should be learning how to think, because learning how to think will safeguard us against the worst decisions
And confusion.
and confusing decisions. So, like, having that appreciation for truth and and how to investigate things prayerfully and within Scripture. It will help you not put the wrong things in the wrong place. So, by the time, and it's a shame, right? You have whatever, like a 12, 13-year-old kid that is totally confused about his life, and he finds himself turning to this online bot. So now, do we demonize the online bot? Maybe. But like, this has to. This is like the starkest example I have is like, when it comes to worldliness, like we are to go into all the world and preach the gospel. So, like you can look at the Amish either in a good way or a bad way, but like, are the Amish doing the right thing, furthering the gospel by
not using electricity?
By not using electricity and really just being almost like sub-incestuous communities that don't really have an impact on the world. And I don't know, like maybe. And like that's a stark example. So it's like now here we are, fast forward. It's like, well, God doesn't have any illusions about what world we're in. And I know there are things in my life that I need to be very cautious with, or even route out if I'm going to further my walk with God. But like, as AI comes online, is like AI the new version of electricity where it's like it can be dangerous, or it can short circuit certain things about you where you just have a comfort level that doesn't make you aware of your need for salvation, for example. But it's like, well, we can understand what its limitations are, and if you're substituting AI for something that you need in your life, that can't be good. But that could be video games,
could be food,
that could be sports, it could be food, could be alcohol, it could be anything, right? In that regard, I don't see anything particularly special about AI other than it's just a new mode of filling the same hole in an empty fashion that ultimately will destroy you. Right? But that doesn't necessarily mean that technology is therefore technology is inherently evil. And I don't know, maybe I'm just grossly biased because my career is in technology.
Right. No, and again, I only went far out because it's entertaining. It's fun to have the conversation. At least for me, it's fun to talk about it, consider it.
Well, yeah.
But this goes back into adaptation, right, and interpreting. Like, some people have a theory that when Revelation, when it describes at the end of time a swarm of locusts that have the body of a scorpion, but the face of a man, and thundering horses, right?
What does that mean?
Wait, so hold on. So when that's being described, if it's taken literal, you imagine this beast, and it said with the face of a man. And some people are saying, well, that could have been a revelation of the future of helicopters that look like a scorpion and have the face of a man. If you see it from the front, and it does sound like thundering horses when the propellers are.
Well, and I think there's a good indication to that, because whenever Revelation describes these beasts and these like fanciful creatures, they take the pains to explain the visions, right? So like, you're given the template. It's like you're given the template of describing, this beast with multiple horns, but then it's like you come to find out that those are, I'm probably going to screw this up because I'm not like an expert at this, but it's like, like these attributes of these creatures are like kingdoms or whatever, or leaders.
Right.
So it's like, yeah, you're getting this imagery of a beast, but the beast depicts things that are going on in the future. So, of course, that element's there, and we do. Let's face reality too. Like, let's not diminish the absolute strangeness of the point in history that we live in.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Ancient astronaut theory, I think, is what I was thinking of.
okay.
But
So, like,
earlier when we first started the
ancient astronaut theory,
or it's ancient,
like it has to do with aliens.
right? That it has to do with aliens.
Okay.
Right. The, I'm listening to you though, but I brought it up for a reason.
Okay. All right. So it's like it's noteworthy to remind ourselves that until, let's just say for the sake of argument, until 200 years ago, maybe 300 years ago, people lived basically the same level of lifestyle or mode of living that they did almost from the beginning of time.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't know how much people appreciate this. It's not like we weren't developing things as a culture and a society, but, 200 years ago, you would have gotten around in a horse and buggy. 4,000 years ago, you would have gotten around in a horse and a buggy.
Mm-hmm.
Like home construction, did it improve? Yeah, probably. Like certain things happened. Civilizations grew up, like the population expanded. But the basic technology and the basic concepts of life remained about the same until
a big rapid.
Yeah, and then and then you could even shrink that time frame a little bit more and say that until, I would say, the invention of the locomotive, until the invention of the train, that was one of the biggest things. I'd say the train and the steamship. When those were invented, those modes of motion were invented. That's when things really started to change. And what we have today is very strange. Now, and I even have a little bit of a caveat on that, because we don't know what original civilizations looked like. Like, we don't know what kind of technology was obtained prior to Noah and the flood, for example. Like,
That was lost.
yeah, we don't know.
Right.
We don't have a clue. I mean, that's an interesting question. I mean, this is where all the alien stuff comes from, which I think is really unusual, because, like, I don't know how much people realize this, but when we're looking at ancient structures, and we talk about how the pyramids were built, when we're discussing that, I'd say most people hear it like this. It's like, we don't know how they built these structures without modern technology, right? So it's like, they didn't have modern technology, so there's something weird because we don't know how they made these things without the modern technology. It's actually more profound than that. The reality is, even with our modern technology, we would not be able to move some of the things that they moved.
Mm-hmm. So they had even a better technology.
They did something. Like, they had some kind of scheme to generate, like, putting stones that are so big that no modern equipment could move it. But they figured out how to put it in place with other similar sized stones. And it's like, how did they do that? And I mean,
well, having a lot of slaves.
Allegedly, like, is it just raw horsepower? I mean, like, if you ask me, like, that starts to get a little far-fetched too.
You think so?
I think so. I think it does. And it's not even like just the fact that this big, huge structure was moved. It's the fact that it was put together in such a way with such precision that it's bewildering that they were able to pull it off. So this is why people love the ancient aliens stories, because it's like, well, obviously human technology didn't advance until recently, and even our current technology can't be used to replicate these unusual structures that we have that we can point to. So aliens did it.
You don't think we
Right.
can make pyramids now?
And maybe there's two parts to that question. Do we have the appetite to make a pyramid? Probably not. Like, if someone proposed a pyramid today and said we're going to do what we have to make this thing, and it's going to take us 30 years, and we're going to start building it, and like literally all it's going to be is the tomb of one person, like there'd be no political will or appetite to do something like that. And like if you ask me, one of the most important things that we've done with technology is figure out how to make things lightweight and make things that are accessible and utilitarian. So like, we have, really quite frankly, compared to most of the world today and definitely compared to all of history, like we live in lavish homes, right? Like we have like a glut of lavish homes that are available for people to use.
But why can't pyramids be structurally possible today?
Because we don't have the means to move some of those bigger stones. Like we wouldn't know how to do it. Like we could potentially pour concrete and we could make structures that are of the same size, but they wouldn't be the same structure. Like it wouldn't be that big, huge, rock solid structure of blocks.
How big are they?
They're huge.
But can't like one of those mechanic, like forklifts or
There's
several
nothing.
of them?
We make nothing big enough to move some of those stones. We make amazing structures, right?
I mean, we could go into space. We can't do that.
No, we can't. That's literally the point. Is that we cannot move some of those structures. So like we can move, like we can do a lot, right? Like we can dig out huge slabs of marble, but like they would have like these slabs of marble that they would cut out, and it gets diced up, right? Like it gets cut up into bite-sized pieces, and big bite-sized pieces. It's not like we can't move large, heavy things, but from what I understand, the scale and the scope of some of the structures far surpass what we would currently transport with our biggest equipment. Like, it's not like we can just go take one of the bigger stones at the pyramids and put it on the back of a dump truck. Like, it would crush it.
Okay.
So that's the trick. And it's not like, and maybe you're right, like maybe it's just pure muscle power and just like creative slopes and figuring out how to like systematically drag these things into location. But I think that proposal even gets very odd because when you start calculating the number of stones and everything that would have been involved, it would have been like, when do these people take care of their families and sleep and eat? It's like, and how many people were there?
So the different theories are aliens, advanced technology that we don't have anymore, giants,
Well, there were giants in the earth in those days, according to it, maybe. And I mean, that's the other question too.
And the giants were the sons of the fallen angels with the women, right? Yeah. And now there's a theory that demons are actually just interdimensional aliens, interdimensional beings that.
Well, I think they're.
And I know you probably heard about like the Anunnaki and all of that, like which are just obviously it's.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know what to do with it, and I've heard Christians talk through like whether aliens are demons or whether they're just made up.
Or what people consider alien encounters now are actually demons.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really have an opinion one way or another.
That are able to travel into space and.
So like, and maybe this is where I get overly fascinated with the mundane. When we talk about deception, like we like this tangible. We like the idea of this tangible, shadowy figure called a demon. But it's like, but what is the demonic? And I'm not discounting that, by the way. I'm not just dismissing that. But I'm I'm trying to put into context what I see that captivates people. So
right. It's the horns.
but I'd say it's not the horns. Like, if you ever get a chance, you should look this up. So, like, you know Neil deGrasse Tyson, and I mean he's gone into like disrepute recently. But if you ask me, I think he was always in disrepute. I always thought he was a little bit of a charlatan. But I mean, with that being said, I'll give him credit. Like, he's entertaining. He's obviously been able to gather himself an audience. He's been able to popularize certain concepts, not to the degree Carl Sagan did, but kind of in the same realm. But he has this one talk, it's like 8 minutes long, you can find it on YouTube, where he talks about how even as someone who's like an atheistic secular scientist, that there's a certain spiritual element to his work as an astrophysicist. So he talks about his work as an astrophysicist, and he talks about how, you know, they would go up to these telescopes, these observatories, and the role that he was committed to was observing the night sky. So he's like, well, I'd go nocturnal. So, and then I'd go up and I'd use these instruments to gaze into the sky. And like, he's like trying to put a positive spin on the fact that he senses all the same spiritual fulfillment, spiritual elements that any Christian would who goes to church on Sunday and worships. He's equating his work at the observatory as like a form of worship. And he's right. Like, he is being accurate to what he's saying, but he's viewing it as a positive thing or an informative thing, where I'm viewing it, quite frankly, as a demonic thing. Like, he, as someone who is intended for salvation, to being drawn into a relationship with Christ, is being distracted by astrophysics as being the thing that defines his life. So now, here's the question. Is astrophysics evil?
No. Yeah.
No.
Right. And so that kind of goes back into the
AI. Right. And I mean, I think you can be an astrophysicist and be a Christian, and you just put it in its appropriate place. Like, you slot it in where it belongs, and you don't make it feel something that where it doesn't belong. And I think that goes with, I wouldn't say virtually anything. I mean, there are obviously things that we need to abstain from, or we should be working towards abstaining from, because we know that they're going to short circuit our lives. But I also think that too often Christians will take something that can be a form of temptation, and then they just turn that into the thing that's evil.
Right. Today's conversation, I feel like the word that keeps like bringing it all together is adaptation. You know, adapting this to that, adapting that to that. You know. Yeah,
like putting things in their proper context, in their proper place.
Or when people don't do that, but they try to adapt it. You know, the puzzle piece that kind of almost seemed like a fit.
Yeah.
And you could make a fit until everything starts showing.
Until the bigger picture reveals that it's not that it doesn't belong there.
It doesn't belong there.
And do we have the humility and do we have the humility to do an about face if something smacks us and realize that it's wrong? And I mean, I don't think we should be. Do you know? I don't know. How long have you been a Christian now? Like, how long have you been a believer, would you say? When did you ignite?
Honestly, probably more than 30 years, almost my whole life. I'm 38, you know?
So you were pretty young whenever you first, like, accepted Christ.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and I'm going somewhere with this. There's a difference between people that, there's a difference between being able to adopt new ideas and integrate them, turn them over and understand them, and allow it to change you for the better, versus somebody who has no foundation and they get blown around by the winds. So, like, I would not want to promote a form of skepticism, and I know people, I'm related to people like this, that it's like one day One day they're nothing. The next day they're a Mormon. Then the next day they're Mennonite, and then they're nothing again. And it's like, and they're all in every time. It's like they're all in. And then it's like all of a sudden they're like, oh well, I found some problems, so they discard it and they go keep moving on. It's like that is a very wishy-washy way of living your life. But your Christianity should be transformational. Like you should be not a Christian one day and then a Christian the next. Like that transformation has to occur. But then as a Christian, then what do? It's like you didn't get like a download like the Matrix where you just get downloaded with the entire Bible and context and perfect understanding.
Right.
Right? And I think it's with anything, like knowing how to think versus what to think. It's like when it comes to AI and using ChatGPT, do I feel dirty or do I feel like there's something wrong if I go play around with ChatGPT? No. But does that mean that some immature person can't get drawn in and sucked in and end up finding themselves hurting themselves? It's like, yeah, that's demonic. Like that is demonic. Like Satan used that as a mode.
Too much of a good thing is a bad thing.
Well, I mean, except for Jesus.
Yeah,
I mean, if it's good, it's good. I mean, I think too much of anything that, if you focus on the wrong, if you have too much of anything that you shouldn't focus on, it's a bad thing. Even if in proportion, it's okay.
You know how you said the transformational, your Christianity, and then your walk with Christ. That also plays into you being able to go back and revisit certain things back to back because you're changed. So now you're looking at it with a new lens of how you've matured and grown.
And isn't that how we should explore Scripture?
Oh yeah, no, Scripture for sure.
Yeah.
I think I was more like.
Well, anything though. Like I mean, I would say it's anything. Anything that's fruitful for you to grow as a person is worth revisiting. Yeah. And
I think with me it's probably just the attention span. Like it's like okay, I'll be bored by this already. I already fulfilled it. Not everything. I'm not saying I'm using this measurement for everything, but just like movies, like like I can't watch Harry Potter 3-4 times.
Yeah, there are movies that aren't worth it. They don't have enough depth.
Right, exactly. It has to really have that depth.
Yeah.
Where it draws me back in. So it's like, oh, I gotta watch this again because there's so many things to it.
You know what movie has a lot of depth to it? Did you ever see Napoleon Dynamite?
I did, but
the first time I watched it, I hated it. I thought it was the stupidest movie I'd ever seen. And the more I watched it, the more I appreciated it.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I gotta see that. That one didn't really stand out to me like that.
Oh, that's a great movie.
Yeah. The pyramids, though, and the giants, and they lived there. They were giants at that time, right?
Yep. If you believe the Bible, there were giants in those days.
If you believe in the Bible.
But I don't know, be careful here. So, I think the standard knowledge is that, the standard understanding is that the pyramids are a post-flood. They're a post-flood creation. But that's not necessarily true, but I think if you ask the basic biblical scholar, they would tell you that the pyramids were built after the flood. So if we're looking at that as pre-flood technology, I'm not saying there isn't an argument for it. Like there are ways that you could maybe say that's like a preserved pre-flood structure. Maybe it was like maintained and or
But you know what? I saw a video once of like a little version of a guy creating a pyramid in the sand, but instead of building it from the ground up, he built it from the surface downward, and then started washing around it with water, and it started forming it. You know,
I mean,
what if that was already an underground tomb that had other parts to it, and then the flood kind of polished it out, and then they used that to...
I actually thought about that recently, but I'd be curious. I'd be curious for someone who actually knows the structure of the pyramids to speak to that, because I think there are internal blocks.
No, you're talking to one.
Yeah, right. You are the foremost expert on pyramids. you know the pyramids. The pyramids are they're guilty for a lot of modern day cults. Like there are a lot of people that have gone and study the pyramids,
Mhm.
and out of the pyramids comes some theory that turns into a cult.
Mhm. You seen Noah with Russell Crowe
Yeah, that was such a bad,
and
that's
those
such awful.
creatures and
Yeah, their version of like the Nephilim.
the Nephilim and stuff.
So like after the flood, those giants weren't around anymore,
Mhm.
right? They were killed.
Yeah. But
So if we're accepting that the pyramids are a post-flood creation,
then it wouldn't be
there's no way. There's no way there would
Nephilim
have no
or
Nephilim, no giants. And that's like another weird thing, right? Like we don't understand the
But you
context.
see in the movie how he uses some kind of orb, like power orb, that's derived from the earth,
So can I?
right?
Yeah, vaguely. I saw it one time.
No, it's weird. It's
Yeah.
weird, crazy stuff. It's not biblical or anything, but you think about how things that we consider to be magnificent now,
Well,
right?
was the name of that movie Noah, or was it something else? There was a name for it.
I think Noah. I think it was just Noah
Okay.
or the Noah's Ark. I don't know.
Yeah. So, that's actually, I'm really glad you brought that up.
We derive a lot of power source from the earth, from the ground.
Yeah.
What we consider magnificent technology now is really we're not extracting
Yeah.
it from somewhere far off. It's all coming from here. It's all
Well, yeah, and the reality is the technology we exploit today, there was no reason that couldn't have been developed 2,000, 3,000, 5,000 years ago. Like, all the elements were there.
right,
Right?
right, exactly.
So you're right, yeah. But this might be a little bit of a segue, but that movie, this is like the way Hollywood gets its claws into certain things, that if they would have just left it alone, it would have been as good or better.
Mhm.
I think a fantastic movie could be made that actually depicts Noah's flood as faithfully as possible to Scripture. It would be an absolutely great movie.
Aren't there movies like that already?
Maybe there might have been like back in the day, but I don't know anyone that really does a good job like pulling together the things that would have happened to the earth and like the creatures and quite frankly the dinosaurs getting buried, the giants getting buried, and how that all would have played out and what the world would have been like before and after the flood. I think if there are Noah stories, it's kind of like this. And I don't know, I could be wrong. If someone can point me to a version of an actual biblical text that shows the events, it would be great. But like, I think what happens a lot of times, it's like you have this big boat made on the hillside, and the planet is just like it is right now. And the water rises, a little bit of storm, the boat floats around, it gets dropped down, and then you just go about living your life. What I think needs to happen is there needs to be one that shows the upheaval. So like, where did, if you accept the biblical narrative, like, where do people come from? Like, where were the first people born? What's the common narrative? Everybody thinks Africa, right?
Yeah.
Africa. I think if you would expand out the biblical narrative, Africa did not exist. Like, there was no such thing as Africa before the flood. There were no such thing as the Himalaya Mountains before the flood. There were no such thing as the Rocky Mountains before the flood. So, yeah, you would have had hills and valleys, and you would have had trees and plants, but like, what kind of plants did they have? Like, maybe
So the Himalaya mountains were formed after the flood because of the flood.
they're probably formed in result of the flood. So like, they
So
would have
why
been raised.
couldn't a pyramid, way smaller than that, also have?
Yeah, but,
like,
but you got to look at the geography around the pyramids, and I still would argue this, like
sand though. Sand.
well,
is-
yeah, but like the problem is that I think we understand the internal structure of the pyramid, and this is where I'd need someone to correct me, right? Like, what you're saying would make sense if the internal was just like solid, naturally formed rock, and they like built capstones around it. that would make sense. But I don't think that's what they have.
Yeah, I don't know.
Like I think they're
It's
actually
like tombs, right? And there's like
Yeah, but-
corridors inside.
yeah. There's corridors inside, and there's actually like it's all blocks. The whole way through, it's blocks. Like I think all the cues are there that it's constructed from the bottom up.
Are you a fan of Marvel movies? Like
Not really.
Okay, there's this one called The Celestials, and it's based off of these superheroes, right? They're part of the Marvel universe. But there were these, and again, they're portrayed as just beings that are not from Earth, just from other planets and other cosmos and stuff.
Right.
But they're beings just like human beings, but they're more advanced and they have technology and
Right.
they have powers and they have things, right? And the premise of the Celestials is that there was this great cosmic being who created the universe, and he created Earth and human beings, and it was under the premise of love and for the sake of creation and life. And what he did was he created these other set of beings that he used as his like soldiers, or like his workers, to protect and work and to help develop Earth, right?
Okay.
And that was their only duty that he created.
This sounds like Greek mythology type stuff.
It's almost like Greek mythology stuff. So these Celestials, they had the responsibility of coming to Earth and helping humans advance in their technology and survive. But this great being, told them that they're not allowed to intervene on everything. Only certain things which would advance technology. But let's say if one was getting trampled by a mammoth, even though this celestial being had the ability to intervene and help, they were forbidden from doing that from their master, right?
Okay.
And so everything was ordained. There's a progression to human beings progressing in civilization, right? These celestial beings got so much love for them, it hurt them to not be able to intervene when they were doing wrong. The plot twist of the movie, though, is that at the end, these celestial beings find out that their master really did not have good intentions for these human beings. The only reason why
This is all Marvel stuff?
Marvel stuff. The only reason why why this great being wanted this civilization to advance is because it made the Earth healthier for him to consume. So it's like fattening your pig.
Yeah, right.
These celestial beings did not know this.
They're farmers.
They were farmers, and once they discovered they had so much love for these human
They
beings,
started going down and helping them.
helping them and fighting off
Right.
their master, who in the movie is kind of like God, and they're like angels, but they're like alien angels. They're like kind of like other dimensional beings, but it's really kind of, they're trying to say God and angels, and then these angels fell in love. So it's kind of like the biblical story of like the sons of
Right.
fallen and coming and falling in
Right.
love, and then they use that in Noah to say that that rock creature
Oh, yeah.
disobeyed
those things.
God, and that's why they were punished into these rock formations.
You know, I gotta be honest with you. Like, if you're describing this, like, I almost feel like.
I'm only talking about this as for the sake of fun.
Well, yeah. But hold
Okay.
on, though. Hold on. I think there's more to it, because I think where a lot of people are, like, in their daily lives, and this is like average Joe's six-pack.
And really quick, one of these celestial beings kind of was like a correlation to Superman. He was the
Okay.
head guy, and it was
Okay.
the same kind of story of Superman
Right.
coming down to save the world from another planet.
So, like, we watch these kinds of movies, and I like sci-fi and stuff. I mean, I enjoy it. And the caution that I always have is that I think a lot of the world is like, and it's not like people are going to watch these movies and think like, oh, this is real.
No.
But they're going to watch aspects of these movies and go, well, we don't know how everything works, but like something like this, maybe this is kind of plausible, or something like this might be plausible.
So can I tell you my interpretation of that? My interpretation of that is not that so much that's plausible. They're trying to put in our minds that what we believe about Jesus and
Hey, it's the
Father
same.
God, though it's so similar, there's an idea that maybe we shouldn't believe that because maybe God isn't as good as he says he is.
Right.
Yeah.
Or it's made up.
And it's confused. It's to confuse.
You're right. It's a made up story, or at least like
It
like
sounds
you can
similar.
question whether this ancient movie that was written down in papyrus is really just that. It's just an ancient movie
Right.
that that's it.
Yeah.
So now all of a sudden like we're adrift,
Yeah.
and now we watch all these movies that are just entertainment, but they're always slipping in philosophy. They're always slipping in surreptitious messages, and that this is where like the wise as serpents and gentle as doves is so important. And I think I sincerely believe that we can learn from pop culture. Like I believe that we can even see salvation messages in things that have no desire to give people a salvation message. Like I think it emerges. And so like I have no problem shamelessly utilizing pop culture as a means to share my Christianity. And I don't mind it per se, but I also see the damaging portion of it where people, and this is like I say this on occasions, like I think a lot of times people who aren't Christians, their idea of Christians is a Hollywood rendition of Christians. So like simple people that believe unbelievable things that are not thoughtful, and there probably are enough Christians in their lives to reinforce that idea, but it's reinforcing an idea that's a distortion, that's a Hollywood version of Christians. And it's like it's the same thing with like creation events and these fanciful stories. Like people will walk away from a Marvel's movie and be like, oh yeah, that was a fun make-believe thing, but some of those things made me think maybe that's something relevant to the past and things that are mysterious. Maybe it's something like that.
Yeah, Ancient Aliens sounds kind of
Yeah,
close to that.
Ancient Aliens sounds really cool. And hey, in fact, I heard this guy on Joe Rogan's show talking about how he was abducted. Maybe he was abducted.
Yeah, and I just read this one little tiny scripture in Bible that
reinforces it.
Yeah, I'm gonna grab onto that, and that's my religion.
Right.
And that,
So when people do that, like somebody has to come along and say like, well, what do we really put our trust in? Like, are we just adrift? Like we can just kind of like make it up and be in a fantasy world. We work 8 hours a day and we relax and eat, and then we go into a fantasy world and that's it. That's all there is to it. Or are we being distracted from something that is out in the open, but it's like old news?
Yeah, because it's the mundane.
It's it's mundane.
That's
it's uninteresting.
Yeah.
I think that happens a lot.
And again, that speaks on why you're okay with the mundane, and you would want to see a Noah movie that's just that, and you're okay with watching movies over. They don't seem boring to you because there's a natural just a normal regular thing to it that you can revisit.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Like an 80s baby. The 80s people loved sci-fi.
I do like
and
sci-fi.
the fantastic and the out.
Well, man, the whole like Marvel movie thing, like I've watched some of them. I just feel like
well, you're not an 80s baby, but you grew up in the 80s.
Yeah, I grew up in the 80s. Yeah, I mean, I was 3 years old when the 80s started.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was a child of the 80s and 90s.
Yeah.
I like sci-fi. I like sci-fi a lot. And I don't know, maybe I haven't been fair to it. I just feel like the Marvel series has gotten too cartoonish.
Oh yeah.
Like when I think of sci-fi that I really appreciate, and I mean, I don't know, have you ever watched 2001: Space Odyssey?
Oh yeah, Stanley Kubrick.
Is that who that is?
Yeah.
I guess that was one of the first sci-fis I watched with my dad.
Yeah.
And I've watched it numerous times. I should probably know more about it.
That's a good one. We should watch that one together.
Yeah, it's good. And I mean, it's a deep, it's a deep sci-fi.
Yeah.
And like when sci-fis get like a little too cartoonish, and this is something too. Like I used to like latch on to sci-fis, but some of them are just so stupid.
Yeah.
That like I have no shame in just turning it off once I realize that they've lost their thread.
No, I'm on the same page as you. I wouldn't consider myself a sci-fi fan, to be honest. I think
Yeah.
I'm probably appreciating sci-fi more now than I ever
Okay.
did.
Yeah, I've always appreciated
Yeah.
sci-fi.
Yeah,
stuff.
no, I kind of was like, I don't want to watch that. But yeah, Marvel movies have gotten cartoonish. But
Yeah.
let's watch Space Odyssey 2001.
All right, good
Yeah.
deal. All right, George, good talking to you, brother.
Same here, bro.
Appreciate you.
Next one with Nigel, right?
Yep. You got it.